Good afternoon, everyone. We will now call the April 22nd, 2025 Policy Review Committee to order. Mr. Wilbon, will you please call the roll?
Yes, representing Educational District 5 and Board Chair, we have Ms. Erica Mitchell.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 7, we have Mr. Alfred Shivy Brooks.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 8, we have Ms. Cynthia Briscoe Brown.
Present.
Also present this afternoon, we have Madam General Counsel, Ms. Nina Gupta, Chief of Policy, Ms. Erica Long, and Manager of Open Records, Ms. Sandra Murray. Also present is our Superintendent, Dr. Brian Johnson. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to approve March 19, 2025 Policy Review Committee minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Board Member Briscoe Brown, second by Board Member Brooks. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the agenda of April 22nd, 2025 Policy Review Committee meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Board Member Briscoe Brown,
Second.
second by Board Member Brooks. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we will discuss a policy on the agenda. Erica Long, will you present the first policy?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We will look first at policy BBF R9. This is one of your advisory committee policies, and it is intended to elevate your board development committee to a full board advisory committee. This language was approved for first reading by the full board at your April meeting. We have not heard of any proposed changes or edits at this point.
Any discussions? I'm hearing none. Okay. Let me see, go back. I will now entertain a motion to approve for final approval, policy BBFR 9, Advisory Committee, Board Development Committee.
So moved.
Moved by Board Member Brooks,
Second.
second by Board Member Briscoe Brown. Approved. Next item is policy BBBC, Board Member Development Opportunities for Discussion.
Yes, thank you. We're just bringing for discussion the policy that lays out board member development and the work that you all do toward professional development. This is a policy that was first adopted some years ago, back in 1993. There were changes made to it 11 years ago in 2014. But it lays out the purpose and scope of your professional development work as a board, conferences, workshops, conventions, meetings of and collaboration with educational organization. It talks about your compliance with board training requirements, reimbursements for board member travel arrangements, memberships with these organizations and other expenses, a board office budget for these purposes, and reporting requirements.
I do want to bring out, well, what I see is under propose and scope of professional development. The second bullet says conference, workshops, conventions, and trainings and information sessions held by state and national school board association and other conferences sponsored by local or state national educational organizations. There was some conversation brought up regarding board members being able to choose their own professional development that they see fit, that's in line with what the work that we do here. Does that need to be outlined in this policy, or does the purpose and scope of professional development capture that?
I share your concern there. I'd like to see that spelled out more specifically. Because, as an example, I do the attorneys seminar at the GSBA mid-year meeting every year. It is certainly one of the most effective and most helpful trainings I do in this, because as an attorney, it enhances my understanding of what's going on in the educational world. It helps me to spot trends, and it allows me to keep an eye out for issues which impact what we do up here on the dais. Not disrespecting general counsel at all, but I really appreciate that personal information and that personal education. That would not be appropriate for every member of the board, and in fact, I think those seminars are actually limited to attorneys. So, but if we could, maybe, I think it would be easy to just add one sentence somewhere in here, and maybe Erica Long, you can suggest somewhere. I also think, given the Board Development Committee regulation that we just passed, it's important to make the point that board development occurs not just with the whole board, but for individual members as well. And my understanding is the Board Development Committee will govern professional development for the board as a whole. And so maybe we need to cover individual board member development in the policy.
So we could maybe add a bullet here, something along the lines of, in addition to board-wide development opportunities, individual board members are allowed to identify for themselves, sort of customize their own professional development.
May identify and participate, individual board members may identify and participate in professional development activities designed to make them more effective or more. We need to tweak that some.
Uh-huh. Well, I will take that language, and then for next month, if you all like to take a look at it for first reading at that time.
Okay.
Any need for other changes?
I'm wondering if we should clarify the difference between what counts as showing up as an official representative as opposed to personal, individualized development opportunities. So, for example, like if let's say you're a delegate for CUBE and you have to go to that because you're the delegate, in my opinion, that should not count against your portion of the travel budget for personal professional development, because it's something that you have to do.
So with those different conferences, we are required to appoint a delegate, or a delegate is elected through the organization. Sometimes when they're elected, they take care of travel, just depending on it. If not, if you're just a delegate for our district, then we will be responsible for it. And I do understand because we have to serve in those capacities, because we're paying into the memberships.
Yep.
So that should not count against your travel. I do agree.
So that's one of my thoughts on it.
There is a provision in this policy that says that the maximum amount each member may incur will not include travel when the board member is the official representative of the board.
Yeah.
Does that take care of that concern?
Can you read that one more time?
It's under budget.
Yeah, it says the maximum amount each member may incur on an annual basis for out-of-town travel will be determined annually and will not include travel when the board member is the official representative of the board.
There you go. If I just read a little more.
Well, that covers it.
You know, somebody thought of it.
Someone thought of it years ago, yes.
Yeah. Okay. There any other discussions? Only that one minor change, and you'll bring that back in May for us.
Yes,
Okay,
adding a
perfect.
third bullet.
All right, let's move on to the next one. We have social media policy, GAHC, social media communication for discussion.
So, of course, social media moves quickly and changes. This policy was first adopted some years ago, back in 2018. And just taking a review of it at this time, I don't know that there is necessarily an urgent need for changes. It seems to reflect our current work around social media in terms of both as the district having a social media presence, as well as speaking to individuals who are part of our community and their ability to use social media. But it is here before you for discussion.
Have we checked with HR to see if this is working for them? I feel like that's probably where there would be, if there's any heartburn with HR, we need to look at it, but otherwise, I think it's addresses all the issues that we had in 2018, and we were very deliberate about the language in this, not creating a responsibility or any liability for the district, but also making it clear that we do have expectations around social media. This was in response to a couple of issues we had. A couple of very specific issues we had that proved more difficult to handle because we didn't have the policy in place.
Also drafted early in our Go Team work. So you might remember the discussion around Go Team members, cluster advisory, district executive, and just reminding them that they should not speak for the district in terms of social media communications.
Are you aware of any issues in HR, Dr. Johnson? I appreciate the opportunity to reread this again 7 years later this week. Or no, not quite 7 years later. But unless we're aware of issues, I would say we need to leave it where it is.
I remember when we developed this policy,
I think you and I were both on the
we were on the policy
committee.
committee, and there were several examples that Eric Cologne brought to us from different school districts to kind of see what best practices was across the nation. And through that, this is kind of where we landed. It seems like it's been working for us, but it's good to have a review just because we have a ever-changing landscape with technology and social media upon the arrival of AI. So.
I guess my only question is just the ambiguity of what is deemed unprofessional behavior. And I'm wondering if there should not be some parentheses and giving some just general examples like hate speech or blah, 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 like that kind of thing.
So that will probably be in the code of conduct or regulation attached to the policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
We also have other policies and even state and federal law which govern that. So
Does that bar us from being explicit in policy?
Well, when you have the regulation or code of conduct attached to the policy, so the policy is giving us the directive of what can and can't happen. Everything else will be spelled out in the regulation, code of conduct, employee handbook. So it goes in depth.
Okay.
And I'll give one practical example. With our annual ethics training, like the online ethics course, it always spells out that when employees are communicating, say with a student, via social media or email or anything like that, they should be careful not to say anything to that student that they wouldn't also say to their parents. So there are guardrails in place in various governing documents in terms of how we work with one another.
And I guess I just have an inquiry in terms of practice on the administrative side of the house. Do we by default, or I guess how do we manage media clearances for students? Do we have like an opt-out policy? Do we have an opt-in policy? Does every child receive a clearance? Like,
Yep.
how do we conduct that?
At the very beginning of the year, the students have a opt-in, opt-out policy. I mean, a policy,
It's opt-in.
opportunity that parents have to sign off on.
For photos and.
Yeah.
So it's an opt-in, not an
No,
opt-out.
no, it's a, I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's a,
Opt-in,
it's an, unless you
I know, I signed one
remove
for
them
my
from it, they are subject to the media release.
yeah.
Okay. No, that would be
So it's
my
an
that would be
opt-out
my hope.
policy.
I'm just trying to
Okay.
get
Yeah,
clear
no, we
on.
changed that about 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're in a different day and age. Like, you can't assume pictures are not being taken anymore. So, okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
And there are some exceptions to that, I think, like special ed students, but those are, we don't take pictures of special ed students, for instance. But other than that, it's an opt-out policy.
That administrative on that side that we don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, just sensitivity around the our exceptional ed population in general. Now, parents can always, if they so choose, have their children be a part of any pictures or photos. So, but in general, we try to have an additional layer of like scrutiny around it.
Privacy for
Correct.
who's in a special
Correct.
needs classroom.
Correct.
isn't
Right,
it?
not to disclose the disability status. I mean,
But
if it
how
was
would
a-
they? I guess my question is like, we're not disclosing the GPA of a student. We're not disclosing if they're honors or not. We're not disclosing if they're AP or not. We're not disclosing if they're IB or not. And there's no qualm with those.
Those are
And I guess
Status.
what I'm
prohibited by law.
right. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is I agree with everyone that you're not wanting to disclose, and especially here's the ethos of where I'm coming from right now. And I've had a few conversations with some parents over the weekend, actually, who have students that are on the spectrum, who have an IEP, who thus are ineligible for honors classes in the middle school level, right? So this is my understanding, that there are some, hold on, let me not speak out of turn, because I'll tell you exactly what was said to me. And again, this could be wrong, this could be clarified. I'm sorry, it was foreign languages, right? So in middle school, our students who have IEPs, and I would love to be corrected and be told this is not true, that our middle school kids are not eligible to, special ed kids are not eligible for foreign languages at the middle school level. And so my sensitivity right now is to whether or not students who have an IEP are being limited from some of the same opportunities of other students, whether it be visibility, whether it be exposure, whether it be inclusion on our websites, on our social media, right? Like, we're not necessarily, and I can understand for like, you got a kid with, severe cerebral palsy, a kid who's in a wheelchair, those type of things. I could see how that could be, there are sensitivities around that you might have, right? But I teach an interrelated class, and if we took a picture of my entire classroom, that would include kids who have an IEP, and you would not be able to differentiate who's on the spectrum, who has an IEP, who has a 504, and yet those kids would not be able to participate in that photo op because they're in special education
Let
based
me-
upon
Yeah, let me
policy.
clarify.
Yeah,
So the example of your classroom, that's fine. Those kids can be absolutely included. What the limitation is around is if a photograph were to reveal disability status.
Fair.
Which is something
Fair.
FERPA protected.
That's right.
Right, okay. That's where the additional layer goes. But a regular co-taught classroom or interrelated classroom, yeah, fire away with the pictures, not a problem.
okay.
On that foreign language piece, I would like to delve in further with that with Dr. Johnson, because that absolutely should not be the case. Disability status, the existence of an IEP or a 504 plan should not serve as a barrier to foreign language classes if all of the other requirements to get into a foreign language class are met. So we will follow up on that.
Yeah, I took issue to it learning it, and again, maybe it's not true. Maybe that's not the case, but I have a lot of sensitivity as a special education practitioner that when special education students are told you can't be a part of this thing or that thing. And so that's where I'm coming from. And so if I'm hearing
As your lawyer, I have a lot of sensitivity to that too, because that should not be the case.
that part.
If no further discussions on the social media policy, we'll move on to other business. And we don't have any other business. So let's keep it rolling. Next meeting for Policy Review Committee will be in May. Do we have any proposed dates yet? All right, we'll get back to the public with those
TBD.
dates.
Yeah.
Other than that, do we have public comment? I am seeing none and hearing none. In that case, I will now entertain the motion to adjourn the meeting.
So
So
moved.
Second.
Moved by Board Member Briscoe Brown, second by Board Member Brooks. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried, meeting adjourned.